love, especially when it comes to animated things, like fan stuff. Because especially like when you talk about things like Dragon Ball, because so much of that is like think back on like what your fondest memories of Dragon Ball Z are. It was like the fights and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But have you gone back and like watched any of it recently? There's not a whole lot of that. There's a lot of standing around and expository dialogue.
No.
And nothing ever really happens.
And there's like some like weird filler episodes.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of those. So like, if Dragon Ball Z came out now, people would be like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
It's like you got to like slog through like 14 episodes before there's like a 2-minute long fight.
Yeah.
But like the fan animation stuff is like all the best parts of the show just kind of all mixed together, right? Like, so that fan animation I sent you was like 10 minutes long of a choreographed fight, and there was like 3 or 4 transformations in it.
Yeah.
That's like all the best parts of Dragon Ball that everybody loves, just in that one thing. Now, a studio can't do that every time. Every episode can't be that for budget reasons, and, you'd kill your workers trying to animate all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that fan animation took like over 10 years to do.
Wow.
Yes, it was a process.
No.
But, I mean, and it was like, 15 minutes long?
Yeah.
So 10 years for 15 minutes?
Yeah, and I wouldn't even really say that you probably got a good 9 minutes worth of animation in it.
Yeah.
Because there's like an intro and an outro, and there's really no animation to it.
Yeah.
Another thing is that do you think that the reason why everybody loved Dragon Ball Z so much growing up, like as a kid, was because there is like a lot of unnecessary dialogue, but it builds up the suspense to what's getting ready to happen.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But I feel like at the age that I was when I was watching it, like I wouldn't have been appreciative of that. I would have been like, why aren't they fighting?
Yeah,
where's the flashy?
But I think a lot of what it was is they kind of dangled like the Super Saiyan thing over everybody's head. Like,
for the longest
tune in
time.
next week to see if Goku turns into a Super Saiyan or something like that. You know what I mean?
I remember they when Goku does like the Kaioken thing, right, and he like has like the red aura around him.
Yeah.
For the longest time, people thought that was Super Saiyan. They thought it had already been done.
Yeah, and who's the director? Or who was the creator?
Toriyama.
Yeah, Toriyama's like, you ain't seen nothing
yet. You ain't
yet.
seen nothing yet. Yeah. And, I had said before, I was like, after the Namek saga would have been the perfect place to just wrap all that up.
Yeah.
Right? Because, so many characters died, and, Goku did the legendary Super Saiyan transformation and everything.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt that naturally that's where that was all I
thought the Cell Saga was pretty good.
Yeah, the Cell Saga is not
I thought the Cell
terrible at all.
Saga was good because it felt like they were moving to the. It's like, oh, now we're gonna pass the torch
to Gohan,
and we're gonna tell his story.
And then they never did. They just turned him into a joke.
Yeah, I don't really know, like, kind of why that happened. Because even in the Buu Saga, it's almost like they tried it again, where.
Yeah, you had like Ultimate Gohan.
Yeah, where he never turned to Super Saiyan. He was like beating the shit out of Buu.
Yeah, in his like normal form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was watching that as a kid. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, they're like, nope, it's Goku. Goku saves the day.
Yeah.
Everything's got to be about Goku.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why they did that. I kind of feel like a lot of those decisions probably came from Funimation Studios rather than like
it just didn't
Toriyama
seem,
himself.
Yeah, it didn't seem like a natural progression when it comes to storytelling. You know what I mean? Like it's breaking all of the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of followed traditional storytelling up until the end of the Cell Saga.
Right.
Because that was, they were like, okay, Goku's dead for real this time.
Yeah.
Like, he's actually dead. Like,
he's not coming back.
His sacrifice actually means something this time. And and then the Buu Saga is like, oh wait, he's coming back like 3 or 4 times again. And it's like, death doesn't mean anything. It's like, it has no meaning.
Maybe it's just the screen. All right, we're back.
We're back. Sorry about that. We had some. We're a little antsy about technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Ever since we lost 2 episodes, 2 whole
Well,
episodes.
yeah, and then we had that one that it stopped recording halfway through, and we lost pretty much the whole episode.
Yeah, the whole entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just seems I don't know where that decision was made to sort of have the episode go back on its or have the series go back on itself, but it doesn't lend itself well to good storytelling.
No. It doesn't. It kind of really drives home the point of, maybe storytelling wasn't maybe they knew that the story isn't, I don't want to say the reason why people watch it, but it isn't the strongest, like, aspect of that show.
Yeah.
The strongest aspect is, like, the fights and the animation and the flashy sound effects, or the flashy, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's, I guess, especially too because that's such a long-running series. I mean, what Dragon Ball came out in the 80s, like
You're talking about the original one,
Dragon, like early 80s,
yeah.
I think. So, I mean,
and there's a lot of episodes of that, just that first
yeah,
series, yeah,
a lot. So, really, when you do that, you're not doing service to the creation itself. I don't believe. So, especially too, when you talk about like moving forward into like Super, like when you look at Super as opposed to like the original like Namek Saga,
yeah,
there's almost nothing left of the original. I mean, it still has this. It's the same thing, right? It's still the same
on a surface level, yeah.
On the surface level, but it's not. There's nothing that ties it to like its original, what it was, its essence.
It's how many times can we do the oh no, Goku got beat. Oh wait, he's got new power.
Yeah.
How many times can we do that?
Yeah.
Ad nauseum, I guess.
Yeah.
I from a storytelling perspective. So Goku hasn't changed throughout. From Dragon Ball all the way up to Super.
Right.
In the course of 40 years.
Right.
He hasn't changed. He's just the same Goku.
Yeah.
But think about like the character changes everyone else has taken. Like Piccolo. He started out as a villain.
Yeah.
And then Vegeta, same thing. And now he's like a family man.
Yeah. They have character arcs.
Yeah, they have character arcs. Goku's thing is just I'm stronger than I was before.
Yeah.
And it's like, that really doesn't seem like it can carry you that far.
Yeah, there's just no character development for the character. I mean, it's...
And they made him stupid.
Yeah.
Like, he was kind of goofy and innocent, like, in the first, like, in Dragon Ball and DBZ.
Yeah.
But in Super, he's, like, genuinely, like, dumb.
Yeah.
Like, there was that whole thing where they're, like, where Trunks kisses that girl. And Goku's like, whoa, why did you put your mouth on her mouth? And Vegeta's like, are you telling me you have never kissed a girl before? And he was like, no.
Like, you have
Vegeta's
3 children.
Vegeta's like, you have 3 kids and you're married.
Yeah.
He's just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah. I just don't get it. And that, not only that, but you don't have to have this. It's kind of just superfluous, and it doesn't matter when you do this thing where it's like, oh, well, the main characters are just stronger than everybody else.
Yeah.
It's because you don't have to have a main character that's stronger than everybody else. And when you do that, when you have a character that's stronger than everyone else, it doesn't lend itself well to good storytelling.
Because there's no stakes.
Right. So it's like, look at that as opposed to like Lord of the Rings with Frodo.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that made Lord of the Rings so intense the whole time.
Because he's just a fucking hobbit.
He's a hobbit. Yeah. Like, they're super short. They're not fast. They're not strong.
They're not warriors.
They're not particularly, like, much more intelligent than anyone else.
Yeah.
Right? It's the story of the everyman.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it's so compelling. Like, in order for a story to be compelling, you have to be able to almost see yourself in it a little bit.
Yeah. A little bit of, like, self-insertion.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like another thing, too, that aside from the storytelling aspect, is like if you compare the fighting, the actual fighting, from Super to Dragon Ball Z, it's especially like the later episodes of Dragon Ball Z, it's a lot of the same, flying around, shooting lasers, so on and so forth. And the original Dragon Ball was martial arts.
Right.
It was, there were stances and fight and punching and kicking and like choreographed fights. Now it's like if they're punching and kicking at each other, they just do the same punch animation over and over, and the characters are like sliding across the screen together, going hoo-ha, 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 like that.
Yeah.
That's not fighting. That's just nonsense.
Yeah, and the funniest thing, too, is like they'll do that, and then like they're not actually animating any of the fighting because they're just doing that. There was like, pew, 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 and there's just like these lines that they draw like clashing into one another.
And some character always has to be like, they're moving so fast I can't see them.
Exactly. It's just like the same trope over and over and over again.
Yeah. I watched a video not long ago about, so I never got into Naruto. That came out when I was kind of transitioning out of like that whole thing.
Yeah.
And apparently it's still going on.
Really?
Yeah. There's been like several Naruto movies that have come out. And that whole thing is about ninjas, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to make a show about ninjas, the ninjas are going to be fighting.
Yeah.
Like actually fighting each other.
Yeah.
So this clip that I saw, I guess, was from one of the movies or maybe one of the later episodes where Naruto and he's fighting some other guy. But the fighting is like a choreographed fight.
Yeah.
And the animation is very focused on the fluidity of the movements, the punching, the kicking, the dodging, blocking, all that stuff. Dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge.
Yeah.
All that. And I was just like thinking about like, I mean, this is clearly like a penultimate fight, like the main bad guy fight.
Yeah, right.
And think about like the main bad guy fight in, say, any of the Dragon Ball main bad guys. There's not a lot of that. It's just lasers and who can shoot the biggest beam.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like how they doubled back on themselves with like how Frieza was destroyed on wasn't even really destroyed.
Yeah.
But how Frieza was defeated on Namek, Spirit Bomb. Like how was Boo defeated?
We actually survived the Spirit Bomb
on Earth. Well, so did Boo.
Yeah.
How was Boo defeated on Earth? Spirit Bomb.
Yeah. So it's like, why do we keep doing this thing if it doesn't work?
Right. It's like, well, let's just start with this.
Yeah.
And get it over with.
It's a little bit telling of the series as a whole, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I don't. There's probably like 4 animes that I've actually watched, and two of them that I consider myself a fan of.
Yeah,
which was Dragon Ball and Attack on Titan. Maybe One Punch Man, because One Punch Man is kind of poking fun at
exactly
the issues that It's like, oh, there's this big problem, but I'm not worried about it because I know that the good guy is going to come save the day.
Right.
It's if there's no stakes, then none of it means anything.
Right.
Who cares? Yeah. And you can't even, especially with Dragon Ball, you can't even do anything like kill off a side character because they'll just fucking wish them back with the Dragon Balls.
Right.
So death has no consequence.
Yeah.
There's no consequences to anything.
Right.
They blew up Earth in Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, now we can use the Super Dragon Balls to wish Earth back. No. That one dude reversed time. He's like, we'll just go back in time and before the Earth blew up.
Oh,
and then we'll stop it from blowing up.
Yeah.
So the Earth blowing up had no consequence.
Right.
And then at the end of the Tournament of Power, all the other universes who didn't win got their universes destroyed.
Right.
And then what'd they do? They wished them all back with the Super. What? Nothing means anything.
Yeah.
Who cares what happens?
It's all useless and it's all pointless.
Yeah.
There are no consequences.
Yeah, none. It's like, okay, I know that, so between this transformation that Goku had and whatever the next one happens to be, there's going to be a bunch of inconsequential shit that happens.
Right. Well, yeah, it's just like I was saying, is that that's not good storytelling because I can't relate to that because that's not the reality that I live in. So it's like you're telling a story in a reality in which I don't exist.
Yeah. And, and obviously nobody here is flying around shooting laser beams.
Right.
But there
But
should,
it has to be grounded in
yeah,
something.
there should be a constant like death.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Speaking of the universe, did you see the video that I posted? To the
About
Facebook
traveling
page?
at light speed or whatever. Yeah.
Did you see ton 618?
Yeah. So
that is fucking horrifying.
he said it was 1 billion solar masses.
It was like it's 68 or 88 or something like that billion solar masses.
So what is a solar mass? Is that our sun?
Yes.
Is that what that means?
Yes.
So it's 68 billion, whatever it happens to be, times heavier than or more massive. That doesn't necessarily mean larger. It could just be denser. Being that it's a black hole, probably density.
No, I think it's something like... I might be wrong on this, but I want to say it was like a couple million light years across.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's so large that it's just unfathomable.
Yeah, there's no point in sitting there trying to compare it in your head. Like, okay, that's how much bigger.
Comparatively to the sun.
Yeah, I don't even really know how big the sun is.
Right.
Like you ever seen like diagrams of like the Earth next to the sun?
Yeah.
It's like a pixel on the screen.
Right.
And even that's not a clear representation.
Yeah, there's another video on there where it kind of shows you like the difference. It'll step up.
Yeah.
Like it goes
like the scale of the universe.
This is Mercury. That's compared to the moon, and then the moon compared to so and so. And as it was going through all these different things, like it was like the Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah.
And then like next to that was
like our supercluster.
Yeah, a supercluster. And then like it went up to like ton 618, which is the largest black hole in the known universe.
Yeah.
And then it went up to one that really I thought was fascinating is called Boots Void or something like that.
Yeah.
Where it's a void there's nothing there.
There's like
there's nothing in it.
Like no gases.
There's no gases, no stars, no nothing. There's nothing.
Straight up void.
There's just straight up void.
Wow.
And it's massive. It's like,
why is there nothing there?
Yeah, it's like 66 billion light years across or something like that.
It's crazy because you consider like the universe is full of crap.
Right. Like if there was like no lights or anything outside and you just looked up into the night sky, right? And if you looked up, like it's like that big.
Wow.
It's like twice the size
like the size of an apple, like
the
apple.
size of an apple. And that's from your perspective standing on Earth looking up into the heavens.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. It's, when you start thinking about like the scale of the universe and everything, and then you always got to, throw on top of that the fact that it's expanding. So everything's getting further away from everything else at all times. So that void is probably getting larger and larger. So the question is, why is there a void?
Right.
There just happens to be nothing there?
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's
because
something everywhere.
There's something everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
The black hole thing, though, is it's crazy because a black hole is just a super dense, like singularity in space.
Right.
That is
like when a star will collapse in on itself.
Yeah, it's so massive that it pulls even light in. And a lot, like you hear that a lot. Oh, it pulls even light in. Well, what does that mean? Light has no mass.
Right.
But it still grabs it and pulls it in. That's how powerful that is.
Right, it's sort of like
that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Right, it's sort of like you'll see like the graphic that they'll show, where it'll show like the Earth, like it'll show like a 3D rendering, right? And so everything sits on top of like this sheet, and then you have like the Earth that sits here, and it kind of dips it a little bit, and the sun will sit next to it, and it dips it further down, and then it has like a black hole, and it just like pulls everything all the way down.
That was when I saw that model for the first time. That was when it clicked to me, like how time and space are intrinsically together.
Right. So when
you can't move through once opposite of the other.
Right. So when they talk about like the fabric of space time, like that's what they're talking about. It's just amazing to me that something could be so heavy that it pulls existence down in on itself.
That's why
So really, like if you think about it, the best way to travel would to be create a small black hole that collapses space, the fabric of space-time in on itself, and you jump across and then have some way to have the black hole rid itself or to like time out or whatever.
The problem with that, though, is if you're thinking about the sheet model, right, and the black hole is going straight down and deeper, and is pulling space closer to each other. Well, time is still that flat plane.
Right.
So it goes down. So you would have it, aside from just jumping across that space, you would have to move through time as well.
Right. So you're moving through billions of light years.
Yeah. So like it's cool to know that scientists believe that it is possible.
Right.
It's just not probable.
Right.
Because the amount of technology and power that it would take to do that is so far beyond anything we likely will ever be capable of.
Right.
Before we all annihilate ourselves.
Well, the amount of energy that you would have to create into the universe is so massive.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, is our first run at that going to go well? No. It likely will not.
Yeah, because they're going to test it near us.
Yeah. Like, even if they go to, like, the other side of the moon and try it out, it's like,
Yeah, then it sucks the moon into it?
The amount of energy they're just placing into the universe is, just fucking
They could do it on the outer edge of the solar system, and it could suck the whole solar system into it.
Yeah. It's like...
It's like not only that, but it's like how many exoplanets are just spinning around out there that you can't see them.
Yeah, like rogue planets.
Like rogue planets, right?
It's interesting you brought that up because I was watching a video on NEOs not long ago, near Earth objects. So like asteroids and things that have come close.
Yeah.
And close kind of has a different meaning when you're talking about space. Close could be 400 miles away.
Right.
That's really fucking close.
Yeah.
But like it could also mean, 4 million miles away.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, that's very close.
Compared to how the vastness of the universe.
Yeah. So when they
might as well be touching each other.
Yeah. So when an asteroid passes us, at that many miles away, they consider that a near Earth object.
Yeah.
And there's debris and shit that comes into the atmosphere all the time. That's what a shooting star is. It's just some crap that came through the atmosphere and it burnt up. Because, very rarely is anything ever large enough to actually make contact with the Earth.
Right.
And do you remember that one that meteor that happened over in Russia in 2018-19?
That sounds familiar.
Do you remember that? It didn't hit the ground. It burnt up before it hit the ground.
No.
But just the force, like from the air displacement and everything that it made entering the atmosphere, like blew windows out of buildings and injured people. This thing didn't touch the ground. It moved through the atmosphere and injured people.
That's so nuts.
And it's like I think they said, and I might be wrong about this, but I think they said that it was about the size of like 3 or 4 school buses put together.
No.
That's big. I mean, so I would imagine that when you talk about like objects entering the atmosphere, there may or may not be an equation you could do to kind of figure out how much of that would burn up in the atmosphere. But if a good enough portion of it managed to hit the Earth, that's
an untold amount.
Yeah, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
Like like
destruction.
Like crater lakes and things like that.
Right.
Those giant craters, like Mom and Dad went to Guatemala, and that lake that they were around, it was 1,800 feet deep.
Right.
That it was from a volcano. Well, these things, these asteroids that hit the Earth and create these craters, they're miles in diameter.
Right.
Those asteroids were probably about the size of a house.
That's so nuts.
But it's the equation of force. If force equals mass times acceleration.
Right.
So if your mass is super teeny tiny, but your acceleration is extremely fucking large.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle there is your force.
Right. It was sort of like a projectile coming out of like a gun.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like if you look at a bullet, it's not very big at all.
Yeah.
But its acceleration is thousands of feet per second, and it just blows a
hole in
grapefruit-sized hole out of a man.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. So in this video, they were talking about like the Chicxulub meteor that hit Mexico or North America. That's what created the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
I can't remember how big they said that thing was, but I want to say it was probably about probably from this end of my street down to the other end.
Really?
So big enough that you could walk around the thing in
Yeah.
a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
But it hit the earth with such force that it created the fucking Gulf of Mexico and
Yeah.
extinguished all life on the planet.
Is that the one that they think happened during like the Jurassic period?
Yeah, it killed the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I don't remember what period
I
it
have such a
was.
hard time with the periods.
Yeah, me too. Like the Jurassic, Triassic, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Cretaceous or whatever.
What was it I had heard? Oh, so something that I found super fascinating was that there is, I guess it's a theory. It's not necessarily that they think this is what happened. So, you know how there's like the story of like Noah and the ark and like the flood and all that stuff. So, an interesting thing about that story is there seems to be a bunch of different stories from different cultures that are told around the same time
About a big flood.
about a large flood.
Oh, wow.
So they're like, that's really interesting that there just happens to be all these different cultures that have pretty much this
They
same...
did have contact with one another.
They did have contact with one another that have this same exact story.
Yeah.
Well, they were like taking core samples up around like the North Pole.
Yeah.
And they were drilling down and they found this type of like glass. And so the only place where this type of glass is found is in only two different places they've only ever found this. One is at a nuclear explosion site. It creates this type of glass. And the other type
Is it like obsidian glass or something like that?
Yeah, is at an asteroid impact.
Wow.
And the funny thing about it is that they found this glass around the same time that these flood stories happened. So
they carbon dated it back to that. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
So they think that these stories are told because there's an asteroid that hit the top of the Earth at some point.
Like hit one of the poles.
Hit one of the poles and melted the ice caps and then caused a large flood. So they think that those stories coincide with a large asteroid impact that hit the pole and melted all the ice caps, causing a flood, a large, massive flood.
It had the ability to flood the Earth.
To flood the Earth, correct.
Yeah. That's really wild. And, that's, they found like whale bones and shit like out in Nevada.
Yeah, right.
Like in the desert.
Correct. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, if you think about it, it's
here?
like, well, what's underneath the water in the ocean? It's sand. Mm-hmm. What's in a desert?
Yeah.
Sand.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you just like expect, it's like, well, at one point there was water here.
Yeah. A very, very long time ago.
Yeah, a very, very long time
all
ago.
Dried up. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's like the salt flats. It's like, well, where'd all that salt come from?
Yeah.
Probably the ocean, because the ocean was here at one point.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the salt flats is that there's no wind, right? So when you think about sand dunes, that's created by the wind. So you're like a desert, right?
Yeah.
So you've got sand blowing around, it creates these shapes and everything. So nothing really has a chance to like just settle.
Yeah.
So out in the salt flats, it's surrounded like on all sides by those, they're not mountains, they're like bigger, just like larger rock formations.
Yeah.
So there's no wind in there. It kind of just disperses around.
Yeah.
So it's completely dead air in there. And it's hot as fuck. So there's no wind. It's straight up sunlight.
Is that near Death Valley?
I think it's near there.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why they did the speed test there.
Right.
Because it's completely flat and it's there's no wind resistance. There's no wind acting on the vehicles, what I mean. So all that salt, the thing about the water dries up and it leaves behind the salt. Anywhere else in the world, it would just blow away and it would settle in different places. But here, it just sets in this spot,
right,
for all eternity. I always think it's so interesting to think like, whenever they find something somewhere that's not supposed to be there, I feel like archaeologists are just like, oh my god.
Yeah, now we got to figure this out.
We gotta figure this shit out. Why is this here?
Exactly. No, that kind of stuff is always fascinating to me because, like, I'll listen to, like, Joe Rogan will have, like, on, like, archaeologists and stuff like that, and they'll tell these crazy stories. Like, there's one that he brought on that the guy was talking about, like, ancient religions and how they've sort of traced those back to, like, mushroom consumption.
Yeah.
And how that helped create how it helped create religion.
Yeah.
So, and I can't remember if it was him or if it maybe was, it might have been a podcast I was listening to with Jordan Peterson. And he had, and somebody that was on that was talking about that as well. And the interesting thing about that is that, you know how they have like the tree of life? Like there's that, it's like that large tree that goes up and it has like all the branches and everything. And then like down below it, it creates like a circle because then it shows the root system, right?
Yeah.
So that exists in like, I think it was like Norway up in like that area, right?
Yeah, it's like a Celtic thing.
Right. Interesting thing is around the same time that like they think that that was dated back to that creation of that symbol or whatever, that exact same symbol is found in the Amazon. Like, not exact, but it's
thousands of miles away.
Thousands. There's no way that these two people could have ever had contact.
Yeah.
Right?
Not in any capacity to share culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely, like, astonishing.
Yeah.
It's like, so, was like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
It's
like it sucks because you can't ask anybody.
Exactly. They're all dead. Right?
We got to just put the pieces together.
Right. Well, and then, Jordan Peterson was saying, he was like, is it that there's something like primal that kind of connects everyone through like your human existence?
Like a through line.
Yeah. Or is it that they were using, like, cause up in, Celtic region and everything, like they have like Amanita muscaria, which is like a psychoactive mushroom that they would eat, right? And like down in like South America, they have like ayahuasca and like all that stuff. So is it that those, regardless of what psychedelic it is that you're using, is it that it creates the same effect in your brain, like your brain chemistry? It's like, well,
so you
how
start seeing some of the same things.
Yeah, well, it's like, well, but everybody's so different. It's like, how is it that they could see the same thing?
Yeah. There must be some kind of biological constant, right?
Right.
Somewhere in there, somewhere in the mix of all the electrical synapses and the chemicals and everything.
Right.
There's constants between, you and I and sub-Saharan people and then people who live in Siberia.
Yeah. People who like are like Aborigines from like Australia.
The people who were alive 200,000 years ago.
Right.
Climbing trees and stabbing tigers.
Right.
It's really just like there's so many things like space, the bottom of the ocean, the past civilizations. It's like there's so much wonder. What in the hell? What's going on? What happened?
Well, it's like they show like that picture of like the known universe with all the different stars and everything. And they're like, interesting. That looks exactly like the way that the brain is mapped with all the synapses.
Yeah.
Like that's astonishing too. It's like why does it look like that?
I mean, I had said before, it's like, one of the things that that kind of makes me the saddest is just knowing that I'll never know. Yeah, we'll never know.
I don't think anybody will
ever know.
I think it's because like this meat sack that you're walking around in, like you just can't.
I mean,
I think there's a cap on what it is that you're able to understand. It's like our understanding of time. Yeah. It's like, well, is time even real? Yeah. Number one, it's real because there's things that have happened in the past, but it's not linear like we make it out to be, right?
It's like a plane.
Right. So if somebody is like, well, time is not linear like a plane, it's like, well, then what am I growing out into? Yeah. Like, it's the same thing like with the universe. Yeah. It's like, well, the universe is expanding. Well, expanding into what?
Yeah. And why?
Well,
it's expanding because of dark matter. Well, what the hell is dark matter? Where does that come from? What makes it? Like, it's hard to accept that you won't have an answer. Right. Because as a human, when you want to know something, I mean, is there anything more gnawing That when you want to know the answer to something,
Right.
you really want to know, and you just can't figure it out.
Right. Well, I mean, you think about like the vast. You can't even like wrap your head around the vastness of the universe just because it's so much larger than you are.
Yeah.
Or it's like you can't really wrap your head around like an atom is real.
Yeah.
I've never seen one.
No, you'll never see one.
Like,
Like I know like a quark is.
yeah.
But I'll never see that.
Right. Well, not only that, but you think about what's the smallest known thing in the universe as far as we're concerned. It's an electron. Right.
No.
It's like, well, yeah, that's because that's all that you've seen.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that is the smallest thing.
Yeah. It's like, how far does it go? In both directions, how far does it go?
Right.
I
Like
mean,
because they put known in
Yeah.
front, so smallest known or
Yeah.
largest known.
yeah, that we've been able to see or observe.
Right.
Even outside of, beyond like the outside world, the human mind is a fucking enigma itself.
Yeah.
There was an article I read the other day talking about there's some researchers, I want to say in Norway, who managed to make contact with people in a lucid dream.
Whoa.
Now that sounds like they like strapped their brain into a helmet,
This is like Inception.
yeah, that's the clickbaity head title or headline. But what they did was
Was Tom Hardy there?
they put like electrons, on their or whatever on their heads, to, verify that they were in a REM cycle,
Right.
which is like deep sleep.
No.
And some people can lucid dream, and some people can. I can't.
No.
And in case you don't know what a lucid dream is, that's basically where you're asleep, but you're aware that you're asleep. You're aware that you're in a dream.
Right.
Usually, when people are lucid dreaming, they're having a night terror.
Yeah.
Because the brain says, "Oh my God, anything can happen, and I'm just laying here." But some people are in complete control of their dreams.
Yeah.
They're 100% conscious. Their mind, them, are in control of the dreamscape that they're in.
Yeah.
So they had several people who came to the study who could do that, and they confirmed that these people were in a REM cycle, and they were asking them questions, and they had agreed upon beforehand, you will move your eyes in order to answer questions.
Yeah.
Like, if you move your eye left to right, that'll that's +1. If you move your eye right to left, that's -1. So if we ask you a question like, what's 2 + 2?
Yeah.
Up is yes, down is no, that kind of thing. So they're asking them questions, like just walking over to them, hey, what's 2 + 2? And then the person who is asleep
Yeah.
would answer them back. So when they woke up, they asked them, they're like, so just to confirm, you could hear me asking you questions. And they would say, yeah, I could hear you asking me questions, but your voice was coming out of like a radio speaker in my dream. Or like, when a guy was like, your voice came out of the clouds to me. I could hear you speaking to me from the heavens.
Yeah.
He was like, I was aware that it was you. I knew it was you, but that's just where your voice is coming from.
Yeah.
So it could be that dreaming is just a fucking ape shit crazy like hallucination just from all the brain chemistry going on.
Right.
But even then it's like, or is there something more to it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for a long time, I had always heard that sleeping was sort of like the way your brain kind of takes the fragments of understanding from the day and sort of it sorts them out.
Files it away.
Files it away.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's more to it than that because there's like you get like a hormone wash in your brain.
Yeah.
And it like helps for like repair and regenerative processes and all that kind of stuff.
Refreshes you.
There's a lot going on when you do sleep. It's like sleep is probably the most important thing that you do.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's super important. People really don't understand just how important sleep is. Like that whole 8 hours a day thing, you got to hit that.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, you got to.
Right.
It's if it's like if you get less than like 7 hours, like 7's like the minimum. If you get less than 7 hours, like your risk of heart disease skyrockets, obesity skyrockets, diabetes skyrockets, dementia, Alzheimer's, all this thing, anything and everything that can go wrong is like almost directly linked to not getting enough sleep.
Right.
It's like that's a big part of bodybuilding too.
Yes.
Yeah, and getting muscle mass is sleep.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people, they're like, oh, the most important thing is protein intake for bodybuilding because you want to be able to intake the protein. That way you have that particular macronutrient available for muscle regeneration.
Yeah. Well, when does your body do that, though?
Yeah, but when your body does that when you are asleep.
Yeah.
Like it does it a little bit like when you're awake, but when you're asleep it doesn't have to worry about like now we're still moving, we're doing all these other things. Your body can take the time to repair the tissue.
Yeah.
That's why like when people are like recovering from injuries and everything, it's important that they get sleep.
Yeah.
Because that's their body's chance to go in and repair tissue and do all the things that it needs to do.
I was watching this video that was talking about like just how much more your body does when you are asleep, as far as like your autoresponsive systems, things like that, like your heartbeat and things, and your heart rate will slow down really far, but your brain activity will spike, and it's just like it's like you said, your brain's just taking over. It's like, all right, everybody to work, we got to go down here and fix this, go and fix that,
right?
And they were showing like this cut that a guy had on his hand, and like during the day they did like a time lapse, and it didn't do anything.
No.
But when he was asleep, you could see it stitching itself together. Right. Like coming back together.
Right.
And it's just so crazy that your body can do that.
No.
It's like when you're awake, your body's like, okay, we just got to focus on not getting cut again. And once we're asleep, we can
change, we can fix it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing. I remember when Allison was pregnant, I'm like, this is fascinating that like your body just knows like, okay, well now we're going to.
Time to make a person.
Yeah. And what, I mean, really, it's not that you're even making a person, it's that you're providing the fetus with the nutrients so that the fetus knows what it has the energy available to it for consumption. That way it can create, right?
It's like the sperm and the egg cell make a zygote. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of takes it from there. The process just takes it from there. But like, of course, like the umbilical cord's a thing, that's how the nutrients get from the mother to the baby. And you're basically just like, pouring concrete into a mold, right?
Right.
And so it can make a thing. But, and we had asked the question before, it's like, how does it know? How does it know?
Right. It's like I saw they were showing like, I guess like after fertilization, like there's all like these tendrils that like shoot out, right? Yeah. And like they kind of like wrap on each other. And it's like, well, how does it even know to do that?
Yeah.
It's like, and how does that, like, just because really all it is like, it's just DNA or something like that, that essentially provides the blueprint. It's like, and as long as it has the energy, it's like the sperm and the egg know what to do.
Yeah. Turn into like a cell, then that cell divides, and then those cells divide.
Right.
And
it's like
so on and so forth.
It's such a like a complicated system. It's it's just years of evolution that have created it. Well, not only that, but everything knows how to do it.
Yeah.
We're
not the only thing making babies.
Everything knows how to procreate. That's the most important thing in the entire universe.
That's the only reason anything's alive.
Right.
Is to make more.
Right.
Fucking plants do the same thing.
Exactly. It's like even like with sponges that do like budding or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like
time to make another me.
Yeah, exactly.
Here I go.
That's crazy.
Yeah. There's so many things, like I said, it's just everywhere you look, there's just something we don't know. We don't understand.
Yeah. It's like, well, where did that come? How do they even know to do that?
Yeah. And we've been asking those questions.
Yeah, and how was it that the first thing went, I better figure this out?
Yeah. Yeah, we've been asking those questions ever since we lived in caves.
Right.
It's, I don't want to get too redundant because we had talked about it before, but it's interesting to think about like a caveman sitting in a cave. They looked at those cave paintings, and he's drawn pictures of, himself and other animals. And so that artistic mind comes from a place of curiosity.
Right, correct.
So he was curious about the world around him. He probably had, more bigger things to worry about, like not being a prey animal.
Yeah, eaten by a cat with one tooth on it.
Yeah, so, but and
having his skull punctured.
Yeah, and those moments when he could kind of let his guard down and be a human for a second, he's like, he painted on the walls.
Right.
He's like, this is me. This is children. This is an ox. This is what's that big hot thing in the sky? What the fuck? And God bless him. He had no idea what anything was.
Just taking guesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was I had also listened. There was like an evolutionary biologist or it might have been evolutionary psychologist, I think was also on Jordan Peterson's podcast, and they were talking about how they're like, what's the thing that separates us from like all the other great apes?
Yeah.
It's like from an evolutionary standpoint, it's like when you look at the way that the mating process between like all the other great apes and us is that
they'll have harems.
Right. So, but the females don't choose their partners.
Yeah.
Which is totally contradictory to the way that we do it.
Yeah.
Where it's like the females choose the partner.
Right.
Whereas like with like chimps or something like that, the females, in order for their, is it chimps or is it bonobos? It might be bonobos. They'll have sex with all of the different men.
You're talking about bonobos.
Right. Yeah. All the different males that are part of the tribe or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they don't want the males to kill the baby.
Yeah.
Right? Or it's like with the females, like for humans, for the most part.
Yeah. In a perfect world.
In a perfect world, we'll choose one mate. It's like, and then your biology as a male is like, this is my offspring. I need to raise this child for the most part.
And for the most part, women tend to choose men who they think can provide and protect.
Right. So so the females will look, and it's like, I need somebody who is dangerous enough to protect me from other dangerous people.
Yeah.
But who is kind enough
that they won't
to care
kill
for me and my child.
Yeah.
So it's like they're playing like this guessing game.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things that he brought up is like this false bravado that like a lot of like teenage boys will show, where it's like they're trying to be
like
tough.
Peacocking.
Yeah, peacocking. They're trying to be tough and everything. Where it's like, the interesting thing is that young women have a hard time picking out the liars from the people who are actually good mates.
Yeah. Whereas
opposed to like older women, for the most part, don't have that same issue because they see it.
Yeah, they have experience.
They've had the experience, right? So it's not something that can be taught. It's something that has to be experienced.
Yeah. When you think about like choosing partners and things like that, a vast majority of mammals are that way, are more the way of the great apes, as far as like having a harem and like there's one dominant male.
Like look at dolphins.
Yeah. But then, think about like avians. Most birds, the colorful ones, are the males.
Right.
And they have to put on this big, huge show and like, pick me. I'm the one you want to get with.
It's the same thing with people, with humans. It's like, well, why do you have this huge house and this nice car and everything?
Yeah, to attract a mate.
To attract a mate, you're saying what you're essentially putting out there is, I'm a good provider.
Yeah,
I can get things.
Yeah. You are no different than that penguin who makes the nicest rock pile.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just showing out to try and squirt out a kid.
Right. Which really, I mean, is really fascinating when then you look at, especially like now, like you see all these people that like jump on like TikTok and stuff like that, and they're making these insane fucking TikToks where they're like trying to explain all the different like sexualities and all that stuff. Like I saw one the other day. It was like, oh God, what was it? Like a cacao sexuality or something like that.
I don't know. Like cocoa?
Yeah, I don't know. It was
like I like chocolate.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called. It started with a C.
Are you talking about the Cupio-sexual?
Yeah,
I know what video you're talking about. Yes.
And so, God bless them.
Yeah.
But the only thing I could think the whole time is there's something in this person's brain that has been hijacked. Yeah. And I don't know what it is. It's like, because regardless of however it is that you'd like to look at, like we want to make people feel accepted and all that stuff, it's like you still have to abide by basic biology.
Yeah.
Like you are still bound to this meat sack that you're walking around in.
You're still going to do things like peacock to try and attract a mate.
Correct.
Regardless of what your sexuality happens to be, unless you're like asexual and you have no sexual attraction whatsoever.
Correct.
Then you're actually, I kind of envy you, because you're kind of cut off from that whole from everything that brings you down.
What that is it doesn't have anything to do with like, oh, I've decided that I'm this way.
Yeah.
What it is that your hormones are out of whack.
Yeah.
And that's like that's why you aren't having these sexual urges.
The biological constant.
Correct.
Is want to get a mate.
The chemical cocktail in your brain isn't doing what it like normally would be doing.
Yeah.
It's different than the chemical cocktail that's going on in my brain.
Right. You know, think about like okay, so back in like the 90s, it was gay, straight, lesbian, and bi.
Right.
And that's really all there was.
And really mine was like a fringe thing. It was like,
so like,
I mean, you're just selfish.
Greedy.
You greedy little piggy.
But now there's like, you know, every time I turn around, there's a new, you know, whatever sexual. And I think, you know, as a society, you know, Western society puts a lot of emphasis on sexuality.
Which is so odd.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like, I understand I'm like the most vanilla of like all the options. Like I'm just a straight white guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, from the outside looking in, it's, you know, a lot of times everyone else spends so much time and energy being focused on and dedicating their personality to their sexuality.
Right.
It's almost like this flag to rally behind.
Or what I want to put in someone else.
Yeah. It's like, is there nothing more to you as a person than just your sexuality?
I mean, once again, that comes back to your biology. It's like, what's the thing you're driven by?
Well,
procreation.
Right, yeah,
right.
Right. Yeah. But, you know, I don't feel like 100% of my time and effort is dedicated to, you know, showing the world that I'm straight.
Well, yeah, I mean, also, too, like, there's, you know, I'm sure there's a lot that kind of goes into that. It's sort of like, is there trauma? I mean, and it doesn't have to always be that way, but it's like, what's like a sort of like the underlying factor for, you know, somebody that has one of these multiple types of, like, sexual preferences or whatever. Yeah. It's like, is it that there's a chemical makeup to this particular type of person that causes them to feel this way, or is there like is there an identifying sort of trauma that this person has experienced that makes them feel this way?
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, I understand when people are like they don't want those questions asked. Yeah. Because you're othering that person.
Yeah.
It's like, but at the same, wouldn't it be important to ask that question that way?
To know why.
Yeah. It's like, it's no different than asking the question about the universe. It's like, it's just you being curious about why things are the way that they are. It's like, I understand that curiosity has led to a lot of death and destruction.
Yeah. It has.
Yeah. Like,
it's like, I'm accepting, but I also ask.
Correct, right.
So it's
just because out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Right.
The overarching theme here is that I really don't kind of give a shit. It's just, you know, as long as you're not hurting anybody, well, it doesn't matter to me.
It doesn't matter to me.
But, you know, I am curious about why you are the way that you are.
Well, it's curious because what it is that you're doing doesn't create another person. Right? It's like that's sort of like the
like my understanding of sex.
That's the standard, like the standard. You know, this is what you do to make more people.
Yeah, my understanding of sex is that the reason, quote unquote, that you have sex is to procreate.
Right.
It's like, you know, biologically that's why you do it.
No.
You know, of course, people have sex because it's pleasure. It's, you know, the pleasurable. It's fun. It's whatever. But the biological drive there is to procreate.
Correct.
So, like, when you're having sex purely for pleasure, you're fighting against. So the meat sack that you're piloting is like, gotta come.
Yeah.
But like your brain biologically is like, oh, we're making a person.
Right.
So, you know, when you use contraceptives and things like that, you're drawing that divide there.
Right. There's a reason why when you are in the act of sex that you're getting all these hormones that are being released into your system because it's rewarding you because, like, we need to make more people.
Yeah. You're doing the thing you're supposed to do.
That's how we propagate. That's how we expand the human race, which is biologically everything is driven to do that. Yeah. Right. It's like regardless of what kind of animal that it is.
That's why peacocks furl out their tails, and that's why the little birds with the blue chest dance around, and that's why penguins stack rocks on each other.
Right. Yeah, I just think that it's interesting. I find it interesting that, you know, it's like I said, especially from a standpoint of like if the ultimate outcome of sex is not to create another person, it's like, well, what makes me different from this other person?
Yeah.
Right. Especially too, like when you get into like answering the question, especially too, like growing up in the South in the Bible Belt, like, well, that's just a choice. It's like, well, is it really?
Is it really?
Is it really?
I didn't choose to be straight.
Exactly. I didn't come out of the womb. And it wasn't like a choose your own adventure type book.
Like you're putting stats into like different things, like 7 points in intelligence, 6 points in luck. Yeah, I mean, because I can think back. At a very young age, I knew that I was interested in girls. Oh yeah. I didn't know why.
Right.
I just knew that there was something there. I liked girls. And everything, and everything that was around me, as far as like the media I consumed and the people around me, really reinforced, men like girls and girls like men.
Yeah.
So, if you were a little kid back then, and for some reason there was something about other boys that you liked, and you didn't know why that was. Same as I didn't know why I liked other girls.
Right.
If you were like a little boy who liked other boys, there's nothing in your day-to-day life that reinforces that that's the way it is.
Correct.
So that's why they say that LGBTQ representation, all that is important, and it is for the most part, because you don't want kids growing up confused and not understanding why they are the way they are or why they feel the way that they feel.
Right.
So when you just keep, if you keep hand waving off like something's wrong with you, or you're not, you chose to be that way, then that really sows a lot of self-doubt and self-hatred and
which leads to other things. It could lead to self-harm.
Yeah.
Or like suicide.
Or overcorrection.
Correct.
Yeah. And a lot of times, those people will go and they'll join like communes, and that's when you start having like STD problems and
monkeypox.
Yeah. So it's, from very early on, it's like, how do you approach it, right?
Right.
I mean, you can't just show gay sex to a kid.
Well, they're trying.
You can't show straight sex to a kid. I mean, you wouldn't put your 5-year-old in front of a hardcore porn. You wouldn't do that.
Exactly. Well, it's sort of like the same thing that everybody's all upset about now. It's like
the gay kiss in the Buzz Lightyear movie.
Right.
What? It was just like a peck on the cheek.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fucking whatever.
Yeah. Well, I remember there was like a big outrage about that when the movie, like, I guess part of that movie like came out and people saw it and they got super upset about it. And
they got hyper focused on it.
Right. So I went and saw the movie. I was like, I want to see if, especially too, because Autumn's going to want to watch it.
Yeah.
It's like if they're like tonguing one another.
Yeah.
Like that's a bit much, right? But it's just a peck on the cheek. And I was like, that's what everybody's upset about.
Yeah. They weren't having a clam jam right there on the screen.
Exactly. Like I thought the way that everybody was talking about it, that there was going to be like...
It was like a Spider-Man kiss.
like Frenching in front of everyone. It's like, cause...
That's the way they acted. That's how they acted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of whether or not it's between people of the same sex or people of opposite sexes, it's like, it shouldn't be in a child's movie. Yeah. But a peck on the cheek or whatever, I don't care about that.
Who cares?
Yeah, who gives a fuck?
It was like, if Buzz started like bent over some girl over the railing and just went to town on her.
Yeah.
I would have an issue with that.
Not okay with that either.
It's a movie for little kids. But if a young girl sees that movie and she knows that she's attracted to other young girls, she doesn't know why, but then she sees that on a movie, she might say, okay, well, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Right.
There's some normalcy here.
Right. Well, there's just so much that goes into it because, you're talking about with children, like you try to, up until a point, you try to protect them from that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Because you want them to be innocent.
Right. Because it's like, as a child, you don't have the correct hormone structure in order to even understand what that is.
Yeah.
Right? It's like your body is still growing and it's still trying to get started up.
Yeah.
Like that's why it takes such a fucking long time.
You're learning everything. Everything's new.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like it takes, we say up until 18 years before you kind of like move out of the house and everything.
Yeah.
It's like, but even then, it's like you're not even really a fully formed, you're still a child.
Yeah.
It's like I look back on like when I was 18, it's like I was a fucking kid.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I look back on when I was 21, I was like, I'm still a child.
But when I was 15, I thought I knew everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it's like
10 years later, I was still learning.
It's like you have like a baby deer that comes out when a year later it's a full grown deer.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have as much going on.
Yeah, they don't got to really learn about like political nuance and things like that, things that we've created for ourselves.
Right. And so, you know, there's like that aspect of it. Like, but also, it's like I also don't want children, like if they're like, there's something about like I don't like the opposite sex.
Yeah.
The way that everybody else does. It's like, well, that person shouldn't feel outcast either.
Yeah.
It's like, but
you don't have the same hair color as everyone else.
Exactly.
You don't have the same eyes as everyone else.
Yeah, but I certainly don't want there to be, I don't want sex introduced to children at a young age.
Yeah.
I don't want, like.
That's a difficult thing to navigate as an adult.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
So it's different, like if a kid's like, where do babies come from?
Yeah.
And like you kind of explain it like in a very like biological way. As opposed to like showing like a hardcore porn to like a group of first graders.
Yeah.
It's different. Your brain can't compute what is even going on because you haven't even had the urge to even see a pair of boobies yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure that's frightening for children.
Yeah. That's, you know, and even, you know, porn itself is a poor representation of what
sex
is.
Right.
You know, it's that's why they're called porn actors.
Right.
And porn actresses.
It takes the biological portion of it
completely
and
out.
It strips it out.
Purely carnal.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's probably why people have such a fucking hard time.
It's like, in order to make a baby, I have to suck her toes.
Yeah,
like, no, you don't.
Yeah, with relationships. Well, it's sort of like how people like will go down the rabbit. It's like eventually, like if you watch it all the time, it's like eventually you're just like, well, it just doesn't work the way that it used to. So then
I gotta find
people end up going to the next thing. It's the same thing with like adrenaline junkies.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's just somebody goes,
keep chasing that
they
dragon.
keep chasing the high.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why there's so many different ways that it can go. That's why people are really weird about introducing sex in any capacity to their kids.
Right.
Yeah, porn is definitely not.
No.
Definitely not the way to go about that at all. I mean, you know, there's certain music that you don't want your kid to hear. I mean,
most of it.
Yeah, a good bit of it, yeah. I mean, but you can't just leave them to their own devices either.
No. Well, that's why being a parent it's hard. It's hard because it's like I don't want to shield my child from everything because that's not setting her up to be able to deal with the real world when she's no longer in my house.
Yeah, but you don't want to taint her little mind.
But yeah, exactly.
With all the bullshit that adults do.
Right. So you have to essentially be like you have to be like, you have to walk the line. You have to be like, it's okay now for me to explain to you why this works the way that it does.
Yeah.
Or be like, people can choose to do this certain thing that you're asking me about. Mm-hmm. It's like, but it's best if you don't do it. And here's why.
Yeah.
And here's what it means as far as the consequences are concerned if you do decide to do these things.
Well, you give them the tools.
Right. And sometimes it's like, especially I think the hardest thing too as a parent is that you go like, here, I'm giving you the information, but that doesn't mean that you're going to follow the information. Mm-hmm. Like, you kind of have to give it to them and be like, I really hope.
It's my duty to make you aware of the consequences.
Like, I really hope that I have set up,
yeah,
as far as like a self-discipline structure is concerned, to giving you the ability to be able to deal with these things as they come.
Right.
That's probably the most important thing you can do for your child as a parent.
Yeah.
Is to set up discipline. Self-discipline, not just discipline.
Right.
Because discipline...
Because you're not going to be around them all the time.
Discipline indicates that there's an outside force causing you to do things that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
As opposed to having an internal governor that tells you this is what I'm supposed to do, so I'm going to do it.
Right.
There's fucking adults that can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you shield your kid too much or you shelter them, they're still having those thoughts. They're still curious and they're still energetic.
Right.
And they, regardless of how much you keep away from them, they're eventually going to see those things.
Right.
And they're going to be exposed to those things one way or another. And if they're never allowed to talk about it, if they're never allowed to ask questions, once they're out from under your control, they're just going to fucking explode and get into everything.
Well, it's like, how many times have you seen or heard of the preacher's son or the preacher's daughter fucking going nuts?
Oh, yeah. So I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
Several times.
Once they're out of the grasp of their parents.
Yeah.
As they've had no ability to go out and try to figure that out for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just so many different things to consider. There's a lot of variables.
Right. Well, all that is that's just parents that, and it is hard. It's hard because when you look at your kid, you don't see them at the current stage that they're in. What you see, or the person that you're interacting with, like, you still wish that it was the little baby that was walking around, but that's not who that person is anymore. Yeah. It's like, and
that makes sense, though, right? Because that's who you knew them as for the longest time.
So it's like when I look at Autumn, like, yeah, she's 4 now. It's like, but sometimes it's hard to separate her as a 4-year-old as opposed to her like as a 1-year-old that had just started walking and getting into everything.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's when you get that chemical wash in your brain that goes, oh, this is my kid.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's sort of like what attaches you to this person.
Mm-hmm. Because you start knowing them as a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, and even, I'm sure even as she gets older and as she becomes an adult, like, I'm still going to think of her as that little baby.
Yeah. And she's going to change and become a different person several times over before eventually settling into who she is. Speaking of kids, we should probably jump into Super Cringe Thursday before we run out of time.
Yeah. Boy.
Boy, oh boy. I don't want to poke fun at children because they're children.
They're 18 now, so that was posted 6 years ago, and I'm assuming that was like a 6th grade choir.
So for anybody who didn't see it, it's a children's choir. It couldn't have been at a church because of the song that they were singing. But they were singing...
It's probably like a private school.
Yeah, probably. And they're singing, is it Whip and Nene? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a children's choir of a bunch of little lily white kids.
Yeah, and like one Indian girl.
I didn't even see her. I was too focused on blue shirt. Because that one kid front and center in the blue shirt, he was all about that. Yeah. He was all about it, man. He was fucking jiving, man. He was the thing that makes it so cringy is it's just the whiteness of the whole thing. Because the song was, it's a black song.
It's an urban song.
It was an urban song. It definitely got commandeered by white people because, as it gained popularity, white people kind of latched onto it.
Yeah,
and then it became lame.
Yeah, well, that happens with everything.
That happens with every rap song. So I saw these kids, and then their kids choir, and they're singing a kids choir version of the song. It's like Kidz Bop.
Yeah.
It was basically that, but but not as contemporary. It was like a choir version.
Right.
So there's like a 50-year-old woman playing piano, playing like this piano version, like this Bach rendition of that song, and then maybe a 30, 40-year-old choir conductor just conducting the children. It's just such a could you imagine walking into that atrium and being like, ugh?
Yeah, it's not so much cringe on the kids' part because, you're a kid. It's like we've always said. It's like kids do cringy things.
Yeah, because they're kids.
Yeah, they're
kids.
Any better. Yeah, they don't know any better. You haven't had the time to be like, maybe I shouldn't do this.
But the adults in that room.
Yeah. However, that choir director that was standing up there, I put all the blame on her.
Oh yeah, that was her idea.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because not only that, but I know who that person is. Like I've seen that person in my life before. Who this person is.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I had to explain, if I had to take a guess, if I had to guess what this person is like in their normal day-to-day life.
Let's hear it. Deconstruct them.
I would say that this person mostly wears skirts.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that this person mostly wears open-toed shoes.
Yes.
I would also say that this person probably has longer-ish hair. Probably down mid-back. This person also probably has like dream catchers in their house.
Yeah.
Mostly probably like over their bed or something like that.
What do they drive? Like a Subaru.
It's a Subaru.
Or one of those like long square Volvos.
Yeah, it's probably like a Subaru Outback or a Forester. Or they drive like an old school Volvo. One of those.
And they say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual.
Right, correct. Right, and they have like crystals in their house. Yes. Right?
Did you ever see that picture of that girl that, and they're homeopathic too. That girl who super glued a bunch of crystals to her steering wheel and basically turned it into a claymore? Imagine being the police officer responding to that crash.
You like go,
oh, God, what happened in here?
Get Swiss cheese by.
It's like she was in a car wreck and then somebody shot her in the face with buckshot. You know, it's so that video is, it's cringy to me personally for several different reasons. For anybody that's listened, you kind of gathered I'm probably a bit of a curmudgeon. I don't like performances.
Yeah.
I can't explain why. I just don't. But I also really can't stand children singing.
Yeah.
Especially in a choir. That type of singing.
Yeah.
Children's choirs.
I think I know why you don't like it. I think it's because we had such a horrible time as children in children's choir.
Maybe.
I think there's like some hate against that.
There's like some internalized trauma.
Yeah.
I just don't like the way that children singing sounds. Not like if a little kid's singing by themselves, it's it's kind of cute, it's funny, whatever. Yeah. But like in a choir and they're singing, and children have such airy voices.
Yeah.
It makes my skin crawl, like like a bed sheet snagging on your toenail, or like when you drag a fork across your teeth.
Yeah.
Like that feeling is the feeling that children choirs give me. And I don't hate kids or anything like that. I just don't want to hear a children's choir sing. It just makes me it's just so grating.
Yeah, I can see where, like, because I think what it is there's no, like with a normal choir, like you have a range, right? Like you have like a range of voices where it goes from like bass to baritone to treble, tenor, and then like up to
soprano,
alto, and then soprano.
Yeah.
Right. So you have this range, which allows you to do harmonizing with the different ranges and all that stuff. So it creates like some complexity to the composition, as opposed to like with children's voices, it's pretty much all the same.
It's just all alto.
Yeah, it's just
homogenous alto.
Yeah, right. So then it's just like this bleh, like out into the crowd, and like everybody there's singing the same.
Yeah.
The same. They're singing the melody.
Yeah.
Like they're all singing the melody.
Yeah. There's no complexity to it.
Right. So it's just like this. Like this is puking out the the tune.
And they singing in a choir is different than singing like a solo or singing for like a production or something like that.
Right.
Because when you have so many voices together, you especially when you're singing something that's lyrical, it's easy for all that to kind of mush together, and it's hard to pick out the individual words of a song.
Right.
So your inflections and everything for like vowels and things like that, typically vowels are over exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you make the vowel sounds stand out from the consonant sounds, if everyone's doing that, then it's easier to kind of pick out what's going on.
Right. You essentially you use no R's when you're singing.
Yeah, no R's, no U sounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually like an O sound.
Right.
So, I mean, also I have a problem with like words being incorrectly pronounced.
Right.
So maybe there's some issue there because that's all incorrectly pronounced.
Right.
I don't know. It makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me as much. I understand what you're saying because it is like very airy. Like there's no there's kind of like no depth to it.
Yeah.
So it, like I said, it all just kind of comes spilling out into the crowd. Which, I mean, really all children's choirs is so the parents can come and watch their kids sing.
Yeah.
Like
and
that's
it's
what
good
that's
for a kid to be a part of something.
Correct.
Part of a collaborative effort.
Right.
Yeah. I get that. I don't want to listen to it though.
Yeah, no. No, I'm not going to go out of my way to go to a children's choir.
Yeah, that'd be creepy.
Yeah, because
like you don't know any of those kids.
Then you're out there you're out there perving around.
Speaking of we talked about, or I mentioned Kidz Bop. Kidz Bop is fucking unhinged.
What was it? I remember, and this was a while ago, so this was like probably Kidz Bop, like 14 or something. There was a Puddle of Mud song that they did.
No.
Yes. Yeah, they did.
Was it Blurry?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Blurry.
Yes. Which people, you can make fun of Puddle of Mud as much as you want to. I love that song.
Oh yeah, that's
like
great
one of
song.
my most favorite songs that's ever been released.
Yeah.
That and that's like top 10 for me. And then another one is and I don't know if they did this one or not, but they did oh no, what was the name of it?
It's usually the hits, right?
Oh,
they always do the hits. They don't ever do any deep tracks.
No, this one was What It's Like.
Oh shit, that's by
is that Everlast?
Yeah, Everlast.
Yeah, Everlast. I think they did that one too.
Yeah. The song where he talks about smoking weed and getting drunk and homeless people and
yeah. Where he's like something about the girl goes in like have an abortion or whatever.
Yeah, that's like right at the beginning. But they gotta PG it up.
Yeah.
Because it's for kids.
Right. Now, I don't know if they did What It's Like. I think that one, they might have been like, we can't really do anything with this.
Yeah, what do you do with this?
But I'm pretty sure they did Blurry.
It's like how you do a Kidz Bop version of Wet Ass Pussy.
Yeah.
Wet Ass Pasta? Thinking about macaroni and cheese? That you can kind of keep that line in there. There's this one that kind of went viral a little while ago. I couldn't tell you what volume it's on or anything like that, but there's a girl singing, and towards the end of the song, she's like all the backing tracks kind of fade out, but it's still her voice.
Yeah.
And she her voice cracks really bad.
They left that in there?
Like really bad. Like I'll play the clip right here.
We belong together.
Yeah, so I mean it's how did that
now,
get past like the final mixing and mastering?
What volume of Kidz Bop was this on? Was this on a later version?
I don't know. I'm guessing it was because I led that far into the process.
I'm assuming that they've gotten so far into it now they just don't care and they're just like releasing them. Well, I mean, even now that's strange because everybody streams music. Nobody buys music anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, who's going out to like? I don't think you can go to Walmart and buy CDs. I don't think that's a thing anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like I remember the first time I like ever went in. Like I went to Kmart. Where was? Oh, I went over to the Kmart in Douglasville and went in and bought a Mudvayne CD.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the first CD I've ever bought.
It's the coolest fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
There was something special about CDs, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Really
Especially
was.
too, like when you're old
going
enough
to a store to buy music.
Yeah. Especially like when you're old enough to like buy your first like parental advisory CD.
Yeah. When you were old enough to like go by yourself to places.
Like, I can listen to whatever I want.
Yeah. I remember you bought an Eminem CD and we thought we were so fucking cool.
Yeah. I was.
Do you remember the first thing you did when you got your driver's license? What you and Aaron did?
Yeah, we went and bought. It was a whole thing of cookie dough.
A gallon of chocolate
and a gallon of chocolate milk. Ugh, that was so bad. I remember I was like, I'm going to do the thing that I've always wanted to do.
Yep.
And then I went and did it, and I was like, there's a reason nobody does this.
Yeah, you overcorrected. When I got my first paycheck, I got a Chick-fil-A party platter of Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets. It was like 120 of them.
Ugh.
And I split it with Aaron. That's 60 nuggets.
Yeah, that was a lot of nuggets.
And I think Aaron ate like 15 before he realized, like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to do this. And I was like, I bought 60 nuggets. I'm eating 60 nuggets.
Yeah.
I think around like nugget 20, it stopped tasting like anything.
Yeah.
And it was just texture. And for years, I didn't want anything to do with Chick-fil-A.
Oh. I heard the other day that I guess like Metallica's getting big again because I guess Master of Puppets was on Stranger Things.
Yeah, it's on Stranger Things.
So, and I guess like now there's been like this huge resurgence of like Metallica and I think like Iron Maiden and like all these like old school metal bands, which, you know, I've always kind of said, leading back into like the music thing, I've always kind of said, you know, I'm afraid that rock is dead because nobody's listening to it. Like the younger generations aren't listening to. Well, I'm sure they are, but just not as much as they used to be.
It's not as mainstream.
It's not as mainstream as it used to be. But I think.
But rock, usually like rock and metal people don't want to be mainstream.
Right. Correct.
They don't want to gatekeep this thing. Yeah.
But I, you know, even like I remember like as a kid growing up, like everybody listened to like sort of rock that I knew.
Yeah.
Like 96.1, Project 961.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people listening to that.
It was so sad when they got bought out and changed over to Power 961 and did top 40s.
Boy, it's just like how many different top 40 stations do you need?
Yeah. You're all playing the same shit.
Yeah. It's like I can listen to this exact same song on 3 other stations.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they bought that so that they would have a better slot as far as the stations are concerned. But, I mean, it's nice to see that there's been a resurgence.
Yeah. Well, it was, you know, rock music was on the way out, like you said.
Right.
It was, you know, pop music was really becoming, well, pop just means popular, but it was really becoming more culturally prevalent. It was in so many different things. It was in movies and TV, and it was, you know, it was, and they're all flash in the pan type songs.
Right.
So that's, you know, that's just what people were listening to. Whatever people are listening to, that's what's going to be the thing that's presented.
Right.
You know, but, you know, and every radio station does that. It used to be radio stations were compartmentalized. Like, if you want to listen to this type of music, we have a station for that,
right.
A station for this. Now it's all just across the board. Everybody's doing the same shit.
Right.
I mean, you have outliers like, you know, outside of like XM and things like that. Like, as far as like FM radio goes, there's still like R&B stations. You have R&B stations and country stations, and then everything else.
Right.
It's just homogenous.
Right.
I mean, you can't. You can play a Metallica song if you listen to a radio station, you can hear a Metallica song, and then right after that, it's like Imagine Dragons and then AC/DC.
Right.
And that's all just kind of lumped together.
Yeah.
Those things are very different, but they lump them together anyway. I mean, you're not going to listen to Metallica and then Morgan Wallen comes on after that.
Yeah.
Morgan Wallen's over on the country station.
Right.
I would love it if there was just a rock station.
Right.
Like around here, we have Rock 100.5. But have you listened to them lately?
I don't think I've ever listened to them.
They play Highly Suspect.
Really?
Yeah, that's not a fucking rock song
No.
by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, not only that, but they're playing, and I haven't listened to them, but I'm assuming that they're playing stuff that isn't current.
No, they're not. They're playing. There's like 3 AC/DC songs that they play. They play "Jump" by Van Halen, which is a good song.
No.
I don't want to listen to it every damn day.
No.
It's like it's gotten to the point where like if I'm listening to that station, I can almost guess what's coming next.
Right. Right, and not that I'm not hoping that rock and metal take stage as like a mainstream deal or whatever, but what I am hoping is that enough people start listening to it and they go, what else is out there? Yeah. And they start going and finding new bands.
Yeah, kind of breathe some life into it.
Yeah, breathe some life back into the genre. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it's, like I said, it's like you look at, there's a lot of really good bands. Like you have like Periphery. They're really good.
Yeah.
You have...
but you can't introduce somebody to Periphery
no, you can't, yeah.
if they just started listening to Metallica,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So... And it might be that they never even listened to Periphery. Maybe that's not the type of rock music they want to listen to. But there's so many different like tendrils.
Yeah.
As far as like rock is like this. It's
rock is like the
it's
base,
the center,
yeah.
right? It's the center, and then you have everything that branches off of it.
It's like I'm really into Whitechapel right now. I've been listening to a lot of Whitechapel.
Yeah.
And I've always considered myself a bit of a metalhead, as far as like I prefer metal to most things, but Whitechapel was almost too far into the metal thing, compared to like what I liked to listen to like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But so it's now I'm moving further into the deeper down the rabbit hole, into subgenres and things.
Right. Well, it's the same. Like I remember, like my introduction to like what rock was Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Like that was like the first sort of like rock musician that I ever heard. And then which is like acid rock.
Yeah.
But it's for the most part that's rock kind of all starts in the same place, right? Like you have like Aerosmith and like the Who and like all that's classic rock. Like that's kind of where I started at.
Yeah.
As like and then you like move into like the 90s. And then you have like grunge, and like I like a lot of grunge bands. Mm-hmm. Like I like Alice in Chains is my favorite, and then like Pearl Jam, and then you have like
it's like Audio Slave.
Audio Slave is another really good one. Soundgarden, and then like you move from there, and then you have like the late '90s, which goes to like Incubus,
Korn,
Breaking Benjamin, and all that stuff. But then
it gets progressively more aggressive.
Right. But it's like the 90s were... I love 90s rock because there's so... 90s and like early 2000s because there's so many one-hit wonders that kind of come out of that.
Yeah.
And they have really great songs.
Yeah.
Right? But the thing about like the 90s and the early 2000s is they didn't have a like, oh, this is what works. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like just guessing.
Just trying
like,
things.
They're just trying things, right? And that's why you have one-hit wonders.
Right.
Right, because
that thing worked.
Yeah, they got it to work one time.
And it's like, so you started with Jimi Hendrix. Now where are you? What are you listening to now?
A lot of like math metal.
Yeah,
like I'll listen like to Tool and Periphery.
Would you consider Tool to be math metal?
I don't really even know.
I consider it like prog rock.
Yeah, prog rock. Like,
but Periphery I would call math metal.
Yeah, Periphery and like Animals as Leaders. Like a lot of.
So imagine taking Jimi Hendrix to like a Periphery concert.
Yeah.
He would be like, "What is this? What is this fucking noise?" Yeah, I mean, well, it's like with anything that requires a taste. You can't just jump into it.
Right.
It's I mean, I just recently, well, I'll say recently, probably in the last 2 years, started drinking black coffee. That's the only way I'll drink coffee now.
Yeah.
Is black coffee. It used to be I liked milk and sugar.
Yeah.
And no coffee.
Right.
And then I called that coffee.
Right.
But now it's like all I like is black coffee. There's vegetables and things that I eat now that I have a taste for that I used to not.
Right.
So it's like, it's you kind of have to naturally progress into those things.
Right.
Let's say you have to have a refined taste or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, maybe it's the porn thing. Like, this isn't doing it for me anymore. I got to move on to something a bit more abrasive.
I mean, I guess it's like you could either have went either way. It's like you either go like, oh, I need more cream and more sugar in this coffee, as opposed to like strip all that out and just give me the bitter bean juice.
Yeah, the bit of hot bean water.
Yeah, hot bean water. Well, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of that too is, and it's rock isn't the only thing that I listen to. Like I have like some like. There's one country music artist that I listen to, Coulter Wall, who's really good, but he plays more like a Johnny Cash style.
Yeah.
Like old school country.
Yeah.
Like, and then like there's
kind of slow, lyrical.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's really good. I like him a lot. And then like you have there's like a southern rock band. I guess that's still rock, but like you have like
it's right. I mean, but
Bishop Gunn.
Yeah,
like I like Bishop Gunn.
Yeah.
And then, but like as far as like rap and stuff goes, is like I don't really listen to any of like the new rap. As far as like old school rap, like of course like Eminem, because everybody listened to Eminem growing up, and then you had like David Banner, like all the southern rap guys.
T.I.
Yeah, T.I. And then you had who was it from Memphis there? 3-6 Mafia.
Yeah.
Which apparently I didn't know this, but 3-6 of like only white people listen to 3-6 Mafia. Somebody told me that one time. I was like, I guess you're right. Yeah.
But you don't listen to Insane Clown Posse?
Insane Clown Pussy. No, I don't.
Yeah, you ever listen to that song Miracle?
I've listened to
people memed the hell out of it when it first came out.
What there's like a song that is like they go like fuck you and fuck me and like fuck a chicken or something like that.
I wouldn't doubt it. There's a part in Miracle where he has a line about he's like a pelican ate my phone. I mean that's really reductive and out of context, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's not for me.
Didn't they have like a backyard wrestling thing that they were doing there for a while?
That wouldn't surprise me at all. I 100% accept that as a fact.
Yeah, a bunch of fucking juggalos.
I'm super into synthwave, like 80s synthwave.
Yeah,
like I listen to like when I'm at work, I listen to 80s synthwave playlists.
Well, that's essentially was the reason why we chose the person that we did for
our intro
music to the podcast.
Yeah. So I mean, and synthwave is like, okay, well, what makes it different than just techno?
Right.
It's I really can't explain. I can't explain why it is, but
right.
I don't really listen to techno. But
right.
somebody who doesn't listen to synthwave or techno would kind of just lump all that together and
right.
say that's just techno music.
Right.
Or like, EDM.
And I think a lot of what it is, I think one of the reasons too why I like like the older like rap and rock and all that stuff, and now like the rock more than like all the other genres, because like they don't really have like a like a method that they're using in order to pump that material out.
Yeah.
Like
it's not formulaic.
It's not formulaic, right? Yeah. So I think it's because I'm not really listening to lyrics.
Yeah.
Like I could really give a fuck about the lyrics. That's why I like Animals as Leaders so much.
Yeah.
Because there's no lyrics.
Yeah.
Like it's just the music.
Musical talent.
It's musical talent, right? So I think that's probably why I like all the older stuff is because there's not a formula to it.
That's why I like Tool so much. Because Tool is very What they're just fucking creative as far as like
Right.
you know they're that video I sent you of that guy listening to Schism.
Right.
He was a professional musician, a professional
He's
drummer.
a jazz.
He was a jazz drummer.
Yeah.
And he listened to Schism without a drum track, and then he listened through the whole song, and then he played along with it with what he thought would fit.
Right.
And it was really interesting to see like him kind of starting out with his jazz style,
Yeah.
and then he kind of slowly morphed into what was closer to the original.
Right. Yeah.
Like he had a lot of like ride and hi hat and things like that.
Yeah.
But he was sitting there and he was counting out the time signature,
Yeah.
and they're in like 5/6, and then they can move into like 3/4, and then they move like just for like half a measure they're in 6/8, whatever that is.
Right.
And he's counting that out, and it was like, Tool's not just making up shit that happens to work. Those guys, they have a musical proficiency,
Right.
so that they're able to make that kind of music.
Right. I mean, you're talking about people who are so good at composing music that they could go teach music composition
Oh yeah,
at a university.
like fucking Juilliard, yeah.
Right. Like that's always, it's impressive when you see somebody, it's impressive when you see somebody that's proficient at playing an instrument. Like there's, I can't remember the name of that guy. I think I sent you the video of it, or I showed it to you. Oh shit, what was it? It's not Playing God, it's Goat by
Yeah, I'm blanking on that.
but you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'll link it in the podcast notes when it comes out.
Yeah.
But like that guy is so far and above
Yeah.
like even really good guitar players.
Yeah.
Like, and I was reading a thing about the way that
Like
that
fucking Buckethead.
right.
Yeah.
It's like the way that they come up with most of those songs is they'll take like a computer generation and they'll have it just spit out like a crazy track, and then he'll play it.
Play over the top.
He'll
of
just
it.
play. He'll play the notes. He'll be like,
There's
okay,
people
and then
that
he just
can-
does it.
He can just pick it. There's people like that that can just pick up and just run with it.
Right.
And that's so as somebody who dabbles in playing guitar, that's just fucking bizarre to me.
Right.
Like the amount of dexterity and just mastery of your fucking fingers.
Right.
Is unreal. Like, and then beyond that, you have to be able to think a certain way.
Right.
And there's so much processing going on in your mind.
And that's one of the reasons why I like watching Rick Beto's YouTube channel so
Yeah.
much. Especially, too, like he went in, the first one that I ever saw of him was that he was breaking down, it was one of Slipknot's songs. It was it Before I Forget, or it might have been Duality, one of those two.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, and then he's like, I'm going to show you, like, here's the rhythm guitar part and here's the lead guitar part.
You can pick that out.
And he separated the tracks, and then like he played it, and I went, oh,
yeah.
like now I hear it.
Yeah.
But like if I'm just listening to the song,
Yeah.
it's like I can't pick that out.
But he heard it the
But
first
he
time.
heard it the first time.
Yeah.
Just because like his
His ear is like tuned to
ear
that.
is tuned
Yeah.
to be like, oh, okay, I hear that.
Yeah.
It's like, but there's also this going on. Like for me, it's really hard to pick out like when somebody's playing a bass. Like I have a really hard time.
Bass is usually mixed down pretty low.
Right.
Yeah.
So most of the time, like if
Unless
like,
you're talking about like Red Hot Chili Peppers, then it's very
Right.
prominent.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think like a lot of like funk bands, like they use the bass a lot more, or they make it more prevalent.
It's almost more of a percussive instrument
Right.
in funk songs. Usually when the bass is prevalent, it's a bit more percussive.
Right.
But like,
Well, Tool uses a lot of bass too, though.
and I mentioned Red Hot Chili Peppers. Flea is just, I mean, never be another Flea.
No.
Ever. There'll never be another Flea.
Right.
You ever listen to a Davey 504 on YouTube? He's like a real popular YouTube
That sounds
bass
familiar.
player. Nowadays he does a lot of meme stuff.
Yeah.
But like back when his first channel was when his channel was first kind of taking off, he was really just kind of showing how proficient he was at playing bass, like doing the flat bass and everything like that. And you're just watching him, and it's like it doesn't make any fucking sense what he's doing.
Yeah, it's like he was meant to do it.
Yeah. Or like people that do air tap on guitars.
Yeah.
Where they'll take an acoustic guitar and they'll lay it in their lap.
Yeah.
And it's just a completely different sound like you didn't know that a guitar could make.
Right, or people like that'll play like the classical like Spanish guitar.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Spanish guitar is fucking insane. Those people will grow their fucking nails out a certain length
Right.
in order to play it the right way. So yeah, anything, people who are proficient at anything, it's
Right.
so interesting to see, like the cream of the crop, right?
Right, to see somebody that's like has a version of genius
Yeah.
that they're able to like tap into. It's the same thing that we were talking about, like when you look at like somebody that's fighters, or you look at like people that are really good at like playing basketball.
Yeah.
Like you like watch like highlight clips of, like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Or you like watch like strength athletes.
Yeah.
Like anybody that's just like so far and above like what normal people are capable of.
Yeah.
It's like I saw a video the other day of this guy that he was in the gym, and like he was walking around with the bar on his back, and there was like 495. So there's 5 45-pound plates on each side.
Yeah.
And he's not walking around with it with his hands on the bar. He's on his phone walking around with it, and he like walks from one squat rack to the other squat rack. And then as he's on his phone, he has a set of 5 on with the squat. So he squats down while he's balancing it on his back without touching it. Like it's a form of genius.
Yeah.
Like you can train as much as you'd like.
But it's mastery of the body.
But he is so in tune
Yeah.
with his central nervous system
His center of gravity.
and his center of gravity that he's able to perform feats like that.
Yeah. I mean, think about people who do like tightrope walks.
Exactly.
Wasn't there somebody who walked across the Grand Canyon?
I think
Pretty
so.
recently.
I think so.
Yeah, a couple years back. And I'm pretty sure he didn't have any kind of safety harness. I'm pretty sure he did a free walk across
I think so.
slack rope.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like that dude that does the free climbing, Alex Honnold,
Yeah.
where he like he's just a bag of chalk and then he'll go all the way up.
Yeah.
It's like and he's not strapped into anything.
Yeah. He's
It's
just
like
climbing up a fucking rock.
right, but like that's just mastery of the body and knowing what you can and can't get to. Not only that, but being able to see a path
Yeah.
up like the face of this mountain.
Yeah, just look up at it and say, I'm going to go here, there, and there.
Exactly.
If I looked at it like, what are you talking about? There's no way to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the person's brain just operates differently
Yeah.
than everyone else's.
It's like I like to watch American Ninja Warrior or Ninja Warrior.
Yeah.
Just either versions, if they're both great shows. But some of those people run through those obstacle courses just like they're walking through the grocery store. Like it's no big fucking deal. Like, do you remember that clip where that dude was about to do his run and then that streaker, that naked guy ran out there and fucking killed it?
Yeah.
Like he was running, he was doing a good time.
Yeah.
On that.
I remember when he got to the warp wall, I was like, if he messes up, this is going to be bad.
Yeah. It's sliding down that.
Because it's like, like that wall has like it's just a grip on it.
Yeah.
So, like if he like got too close and like rubbed his Johnson against it,
Ugh. Ay, ay, ay.
you just see like this skin mark.
I mean, like the person who comes after him is like, "Can y'all clean the wall before I do it?" Well, I think that's all we got time for today. I know we kind of had a deep discussion right off the bat. We just dove right into that.
No.
But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. I got a notification that our podcast had 94 downloads
Really?
last week, which is
Nice.
We haven't seen those numbers since like episode 19. We're usually like
Yeah.
around like 50, 60,
Yeah.
around there somewhere. And so I don't know what happened last week. Everybody just listened to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're one of those 94 people, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. We always appreciate the listening. We still have some stickers left. If anybody wants some stickers, just reach out to us.
Yep. So
And
if
we'll get
you're
those
one
to
of the
you.
new people in those 94,
Yeah. Yeah, if you found the podcast via the QR code on the stickers, you can also get some stickers of your own. Yeah, so you have anything you'd like to close with? Closing statements?
Yep. Nope. Just once again, thank you so much for, I guess, number one, your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your time, allowing us to be able to
Take an hour and a half
Yeah.
out of your week
penetrate your ear holes.
with our garbage.
Yeah. Just thank you for the continued support. It means a lot. So
It really does.
we really appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.